The problem, of course, is that it breaks the long-standing law of the seas and freedom of navigation, concepts that have been with us for quite some time. And then we can sort of obviously imagine a cascade of impacts, including in the Red Sea, Bab el-Mandeb area, where the Houthis have also been destabilizing and could come up with their own fee structure as well. So it is a dangerous sort of precedent.
Will there be a deal that could, well, make progress at least on the opening of the Strait of Hormuz? Donald Trump has been saying that's been the aim. That's why he called off a massive attack. Now he's saying could be coming. And then the Treasury Secretary in the Donald Trump team, Scott Bessent, went a bit further and said he thought that there could be a deal, well, later today or tomorrow.
President Trump last week threatened what would have been one of the largest military campaigns, or the largest military campaign since World War II, against the Iranians. And now because of that, we are in talks with the Iranians. And I think there is a chance we may have a deal today or tomorrow to open the strait and move towards a more normalized position in this conflict. And that's because their Air Force is wiped out, their Navy is wiped out, substantial portion of their missiles are wiped out. More importantly, their missile production capability is wiped out.
And that statement was enough to take the price of a barrel of crude below $80. So Dr. Sanam Vakil, the director of the Middle East and North Africa program at Chatham House, can maybe tell us more. Hello to you.
Hello.
What do you make of what you're hearing there? We hear Scott Bessent saying that we've been talking to Iran, all sorts of sort of conflicting accounts of what's going on. Iran says, yeah, they're talking to Oman about the Strait of Hormuz. America says they're in contact with Iran. But either way, now there does seem to be more talk of a deal possibly being close. What's your assessment?
Well, what we do know is that there have been indirect negotiations mediated by the Omanis to try and reformulate the memorandum of understanding that was signed back in June to clarify some of the misinterpretations from both sides over that agreement, and ultimately and quickly open the Strait of Hormuz. The agreement basically fell apart because Iran believed that in that 60-day period, it would have control over the Strait of Hormuz and saw the U.S. as trying to reduce its control. So this is about finding a mutually agreed solution that will build confidence and perhaps be more sustainable.
I'm seeing some reporting that if there is a deal, it could involve Iran, well, getting and demanding and getting service charges, as they're called. They don't say they're tolls, they say they're service charges and some sort of charge for security. I don't know, is that protection money by another name? It certainly looks like a toll by another name. And crucially, Dr. Vakil, it would mean accepting Iran's right of control in the Strait of Hormuz, which would be a hugely important concession.
Absolutely. It would be a concession by the United States and also the Gulf states. But I think that certainly there's going to be a bit more of a managed arrangement. Iran wants, certainly, or the reports that are coming out suggest that Iran would have oversight or navigation control over incoming ships and oversight over outbound ships. We don't yet have a sense of the charges, be them voluntary or not, but there now seems to be a somewhat acceptance that there will be a fund or some sort of fee arrangement that will be put in place that will help Iran, but perhaps actually also all GCC states. When you do have such a large waterway, you do incur charges regardless, and there are creative solutions that have been put in place in other waterways as well to bear in mind, including in the Straits of Malacca, for example.
Yeah, the U.S. Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, he has warned in the past that to allow any form of, or concede any form of control with fees, but just conceding control would set a big and important precedent globally. Do you suggest that there may be some way to finesse or fudge that?
Well, certainly, I think that there will be an effort to fudge it, and that much is going to be, the devil will be effectively in the details. The problem, of course, is that it breaks the long-standing law of the seas and freedom of navigation, concepts that have been with us for quite some time, and then we can sort of obviously imagine a cascade of impacts, including in the Red Sea, Bab el-Mandeb area, where the Houthis have also been destabilizing and could come up with their own fee structure as well. So it is a dangerous sort of precedent, but we do have to remember that this war certainly did not go as planned. It was poorly managed, poorly perhaps implemented as well. And now the US, the Gulf states, but much of the world economy is being held hostage by Iran's leverage in the Strait of Hormuz. And so, the best way through is through an arrangement and a compromise rather than a return to military conflict that would be very dangerous, not just for Iran and the US, but for the region more broadly.
Yeah, I mean, the war has come at a huge cost for the oppressive regime in Tehran. There's no doubt about that. But on the American side, we're now looking at the president in something of a corner. He's looking at an outcome which will, it'll either be more and endless conflict, or it'll be a completely unpalatable win, which he'll no doubt dress up as a massive victory.
Well, I mean, ultimately, both Tehran and Washington are looking to showcase that they have won or come out stronger as a result of this war. And I think it would be in all of our interests to let them both think that they have done so. A deal on the Strait of Hormuz, however, is not necessarily going to wrap up all of these issues and underlying tensions that brought about this war. It's very important that the Trump administration and the Iranians, with the help of regional actors, also discuss Iran's nuclear program, which was what this war was supposedly about, alongside perhaps changing the regime in Tehran. And if all of these actors stop at opening the Strait of Hormuz, it is highly likely that we will be back in some sort of conflict, whether it's a few weeks or a few months.
All right, Dr. Sanam Vakil at Chatham House, thank you so much. I mean, I was saying earlier on, Jack, that we've had Donald Trump for a day or so saying there's going to be could be a deal imminently, unless there isn't, when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz and the Middle East. Now today, Scott Bessent saying there could be some news on that either today or maybe tomorrow, and that has had an effect, among other things, on oil prices.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, like with all this stuff, this has been the play for the last, how many months now? 6 months now since this war began. It's very difficult for markets to obviously respond to what the president and the senior officials in the administration are saying, because obviously they say one thing one day and it doesn't actually materialise. The Iranians also question the validity of those claims, like they've done this week off the back of Donald Trump originally saying that there was going to be a deal to reopen the Strait of Hormuz pretty quickly. But those comments from Scott Bessent today, I mean, they have had an impact in the oil markets. Price of Brent crude down quite sharply by about 5% today. WTI also down quite sharply. Brent crude trading about $80 a barrel. So that's quite a lick lower from the $100 a barrel we saw a couple of weeks ago. That's also had an impact on other parts of the financial markets. So we've seen government borrowing costs drop again today. The yield on the benchmark 10-year UK bond down about 0.5 percentage points to below 5%, which obviously will be good news for John Healy and Andy Burnham. And the FTSE's up a tad today, about 0.3%. Stock 600 in Europe up about 0.75%. But I think otherwise from that, obviously the Middle East war is basically driving every single movement on the financial markets at the moment. But apart from that, it's a very typical August day in the city. It's quite quiet today. So